Serious, if you could learn the honest truth behind any rumor or mystery from the course of human history, what secret would you like to unravel? No idea why, but I'm just so interested in finding Genghis Khan's grave. The brutal extent they went through to keep it secret is truly messed up. I heard an interesting conspiracy theory once. Perhaps Genghis Khan actually had a simple cremation and the legend of his grand burial was used to keep his empire hungry for conquest and glory. Or those in charge pocketed the money for his grand burial and came up with that story after killing all the witnesses. This is going to sound like a conspiracy theory. Swiss bank vaults used as collateral by the Nazis. When the Third Reich was defeated and collapsed, the Swiss would have grossly violated their quote-unquote neutrality if they revealed they had the stuff. They couldn't sell it openly, and there weren't exactly factions friendly to the idea of paying for Europe's stolen masterpieces. My argument for the Swiss having them is based in their admittance that they dealt in gold and what would today be considered war profiteering. It is likely, therefore, that the art was indeed destroyed to absolve those who possessed them of guilt and/or responsibility. Probably what happened to Chris Kermers and Liz Ann Fruin. Two girls went on a trip to Panama and they went on a hike and never came back. Later their bag was found and they had a digital camera. If you look through the pictures it starts off innocent enough, but as it gets darker they're clearly not having a good time. And then there's a shit ton of random night pictures that they assumingly were using the flash to try and find their way. They found the foot of one of them still in the boot and they found a femur as well, but no one knows exactly what happened. Some rumors range from cannibalism to being eaten by wild animals. Edit, found the album from their camera http://imager.com/a/idpqc. The details of the Bronze Age collapse. We only know very generally what happened, read 1177 by Eric Klein for details, but precious little specifics, ESP who did what and why. Droughts, famines, revolts, piracy, population movement, trade collapse etc. are all involved. Mycenae, Minoans, Troy, Hittites, Ugarites etc. Every city from Greece to the Levant was burned down and every civ collapsed. Egypt, Assyria, and Babylonia didn't collapse but were severely weakened for centuries. Yes. And to add to it, who were the Sea Peoples? Who the Istal Woman really was, what she was doing, how she ended up dead in such a remote valley, in Bergen, Norway. No one has been able to identify her in 50 years. Edit, what's especially strange about this case is that she had about 8 different aliases which she used all over Europe, and then was found burned alive in the middle of a Norwegian valley. All eyewitness reports from people who crossed paths with her state that she stood out, and always seemed to be on high alert. I personally believe the theory of her being a spy. The Mary Celeste, I believe that's the name, it was a U.S. merchant ship that was found completely abandoned floating in the ocean in the 1800s. I would also like to find out what happened to another ghost ship that was found with everyone frozen. There was a spilled barrel of alcohol in the ship, the lifeboats were missing, and a rope was trailing behind the ship. What happened is that the alcohol started evaporating, making it hard to breathe, so everyone left their stuff and went out on a lifeboat behind the ship to let it air out. Then the rope snapped and the ship went drifting away from the lifeboat. It's a little disappointing when I've known about the mystery for years, and someone explains it in a way that makes perfect sense to my adult brain. There are a lot of really fucked up industrial accidents out there. For example, the confined spaces horror story. Low oxygen environment, buddy passes out, second guy goes to help, and a third, and before you know it, 3 funerals and a hard lesson learned. My workplace did a whole first aid training seminar together earlier this year, and the trainer really wanted us to role play situations that would come up in our actual workplace. They had a bunch of the CPR dummies for everyone to share and had us walk into a room one at a time where they were set up to see how we'd respond to individual scenarios so they could provide feedback. I walked into a room with all the dummies laid out on the floor ready for me to go from dummy to dummy, trying to get a reaction and then starting first aid based on what I thought was happening. I pretty much immediately went straight back out into the hallway and pantomimed calling 911. If there's 8 bodies laying unresponsive on the floor in my workplace with no noise in the hallway before approaching, then there's likely something seriously wrong with the air in the space. When I was a lifeguard instructor, I set up a scenario like this during training to teach them to use their brain. The students would take turns playing lifeguard while the rest were patrons. I would pick a person to be a victim and what kind of victim they were, and the lifeguard would have to scan the pool and watch until that person started drowning. My favorite scenario was when I had all of the patrons in the pool suddenly go limp all at the same time after swimming normally. 10/10 lifeguard trainees jumped in and were electrocuted. A few. What actually happened to the Samaritan man, who he was and what he was actually involved in? What happened at the lost colony of Roanoke? Which version of the Great Filter is actually true? Edit. So, I guess Stephen King left a more indelible mark on Roanoke than the actual colonists. Despite speculation, the evidence seems clear to me. Fiction paints a far more interesting picture.